All right. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the 1 month Programming for Non-Programmers webinar. My name is Chris, and I'm going to take you through this journey of understanding how to think and speak more confidently about coding. So we have people coming in the chat room right now. So I'm just wait a minute or two to get everybody, to get everybody coming in. Thank you if you're watching this. Thanks for being here on time. And I want to let you know, I'll let you know a few things before we get started. I want to let you know that if you have any questions at any point, just put them in the chat room. I'm going to be teaching for about 1 hour. And so during that time, I don't want to be too distracted with going back and forth between the questions. So I'm going to hold them all to the end. But if you think of something, you can ask it at any point. I'll also I may give my email at the end. If you follow through the whole thing, I want to reward you with being able to ask me questions directly if you have a question about your next steps after this. So do that. I practice something called, just while we're getting everybody on, I'm just going to explain to you how I practice deep work, which I think is really important. Deep work is the ability to really focus for at least 1 hour straight when you're doing work. A lot of people will say, hey, I worked for 8 hours today, but they didn't actually do much work, right? They were like on their phone, on their Facebook. So before we get started, if you're there listening, before we get started, if you can just turn down your phone, it's really going to help you focus and get this message. I put this together. This is the best of a course which I've been teaching for 7 years, which I teach at Columbia University. I'm really just boiling down in this 1 hour, the method that you need to understand and think better about coding. And so I really want to make sure that you get that. So let's work on this together. You and me right here in this moment. No phone. Also, you can shut down any browser windows that you have. It's gonna be better just to have this one window open. I know how it is. There's so many things that you could be doing right now. So I really do appreciate you being here as well. And let's just give each other the courtesy of focusing in this moment. That's it. I think if you do that, then an hour from now, you are going to be a lot more confident and successful in understanding and thinking about programming. So let's just get into it. Let's just get into this right here. Anybody else that joins in will have to just catch up. So programming for non-programmers. What are we here to do? Our goal in this about 45 minutes, the next 45 minutes, because then I'm going to open it up to questions. Our goal is to help you think and speak more confidently about code. One of the biggest misconceptions is that in order to speak about code, to make hiring decisions for developers and all this, is that you actually need to be a developer. And that's not always the case. I'm going to share with you a few stories in my experience as a developer for 10 years, as the co-founder of this company, 1 month, where we've hired up to, and we had a staff of about 20 people here, where we've made lots of hiring decisions, and over the years have had to really refine, what it is to choose good talent. And that isn't always going to be the case where the person making those decisions knows how to code. But there are some key takeaways by understanding the method for how development gets done. And that's what I want to make sure that you leave with here today. If you stick around to the end of this webinar, I am going to give you, I'm not going to tell you right now, but there's a special prize or kind of like thing at the end, which I'm going to give you guys to take away with as my just kind of, like a reward for sticking around and having done that. So I'm going to leave that for now, but this is the goal of the next 45 minutes. And at the end, stay tuned. If you make it to the end, I'll give you a special little something. So you'll get that. Okay? So let's just keep going and getting into it. Who am I and why does it matter? Well, I have been a developer for over 10 years. Right now, I am a professor at Columbia University where I teach a course called Digital Literacy for Decision Makers. I also am the co-founder here of 1 month. My co-founder, Matan Griffel, also teaches with me a different course. He teaches Python at Columbia University, and he teaches databases there. The two of us came together a few years ago now, quite a few years, where we had this idea of improving online education, taking the college education, which costs $50,000, taking the best of that and scaling it to people who either aren't in New York City, or in a big city where you can get that education, who either don't have the money to spend on it, but who are passionate and want to learn and better themselves. And that's why I am here and so excited to be bringing you this webinar right now. So that was our goal, and that's the journey we've been on. We went through an incubator in Silicon Valley called Y Combinator to get started with the company. Before that, I've done consulting with companies like Donors Choose, American Express. I've developed websites for the Black Eyed Peas, Toyota, on and on and on. A lot of different things that I've done that I'm here trying to bring you the patterns that I've seen working with all these different people, what you can take away and bring to your world, right? So that's what I've been working on for the past 8 years. So I'm excited to bring that to you. You see all this. I know how this feels because you see all this and you say, oh, well, this guy here, he's special or a genius or whatever. He must have been coding since he was 16. And no, none of this is true. I never thought, to be honest with you, I never thought coding was cool at all. I was a music major. That was actually how I got started. I was a music major, and I just had a problem though I wanted to solve, right? And the problem that I wanted to solve was I needed a website for my band. And this idea of a problem to solve is going to come up a few times in the webinar today, because as you're going to see, the main idea of focusing and thinking like a developer is really problem solving. So let's start with this. Back in the day, I was in college and I was a music major, but I had a problem that I wanted to solve. What was the problem? I wanted my website to have a band. I wanted that too, but I more wanted my band to have a website. That doesn't make any sense. So what did I do? I didn't really know anybody that knew much about websites. This is 2002, and there wasn't an easy way to get an MP3 on the internet, right? I thought, oh, if I could just get my band's music on the internet, then anyone in the world could download it and play it, put it on radio stations, be an MTV. This is what I thought would happen. And I made that website, and that's exactly what happened. All right, that's not what happened after, but I did make the website, and we did have a lot of success touring, playing around. It was a great experience to have this thing that I made and see people, all over the East Coast mostly. We played shows, and radio stations did pick it up. We didn't go on MTV. We didn't get, we weren't Britney Spears level at the time, but we had some great successes, and I really found such reward in making that website and having people tell me they liked it and tell me they liked our music. It was really a powerful experience. So from there, I started to notice that I was making a lot more money making websites for friends' bands than I was playing music. And it was at that point that I decided, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be maybe music should be something I love, and then this coding thing's kind of fun and I'm really enjoying it. Maybe that's my profession and maybe the thing that I want to go into. So I had spent a lot of time, during those 2 years going and sitting in on computer science classes and reading books and I don't know, everything I could do, and none of it was working because there was just so many options and I didn't know where to start, right? So that's why I'm here. I'm here to boil down to you a method of 4 steps that you can get started to seeing how to start thinking about solving problems, which are, making a website, making an app, and then the languages, the tools that you can use to make that happen. That's what I learned, and that's what I've been doing for the past 15 years. I'm also going to share with you right now. So I was going to give you a little bit of a prize at the end or something, a surprise at the end. But this is a surprise because I've never shared this with anybody. But here are photos of that first website that I ever created. Ready? It's pretty simple. But this is my band. You can see me on the right. That photo looks like we think we're super cool, but that was just in a parking lot in our college. And and I don't know where this sand color came from. my blue pillar. Colors probably should have been blue. But whatever. It was the first thing I got out there, and it was really cool. There's actually a quote which I love from the guy, Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn, who says, if the first thing you put out doesn't embarrass you, then you've waited too long. And I think a lot of people wait too long to work on their idea, to put it in the world and share it with people. And I happen to have some good people that I was working with back in college who just inspired me to put it out there, do something. And it was exciting. So that was the lesson for me. So this is the website. This is the band. All right, moving on. So who is this course for? So why are you here? I really want to know that. If you can put it in the chat right now, let me know, why are you here watching this webinar? What problem did you have in your life when you thought, maybe I should learn a little bit about coding or how to think like a developer? This course is for anyone who wants to speak confidently with developers. Maybe you want to hire a developer. Perhaps you want to become a developer or know enough about coding that you could, maybe just update your own website or get something started by yourself and then hire a developer. Or maybe you just want to understand the fundamentals of digital literacy. Why are there so many different programming languages? How do you get started? Just how to have that confidence in general. A lot of the objections to learning the code, or the pushback of why people haven't learned to code yet, goes something like this. I hear these all the time. Yeah, Chris, but I don't have a brain for coding. That's for other people. Or coding is just for people that are good at math, right? That's a really common misconception. I've also heard a lot of people in my classes that come to us and have success say, I had tried to learn with Codecademy and it didn't work. So there's a lot of different sites and competitors out there, a lot of things that are free and you can just tinker with, but they don't have a method. They don't use the real tools that actual developers use, and they tend to start way too complicated. You get lost right away because they don't know how to speak to people who aren't developers. That's one of the biggest complaints that I hear. What is programming and why do I care? Okay. So in this part, we're going to work up to the 4-step method, which will be the takeaway for how you think more like a developer. Before we get there, we need to fundamentally have a vocabulary that we can share. Whenever you learn something new, the biggest barrier between speaking and getting into that new field is vocabulary. Think about it. If you want to become a lawyer, what's the difference between me and a lawyer is that a lawyer can read through those words and they make sense, and the context of how to put those words together is really the concepts of understanding that. You want to be a mechanic, you're going to learn all the words about cars. Well, with programming, there's some fundamental vocabulary, and we're going to start it off right now by defining that word. Quite simply, programming is a set of instructions used to solve a problem. That's it. A set of instructions, you can think of it as a list or like a recipe, right? For solving a specific problem. Well, let's give it a shot. Let's have a specific problem that we can solve right now. What would that be? I'm hungry. I want to eat something, right? So my mom used to make me peanut butter and jelly sandwiches when she was young. We kept the crust on. I don't know about you. And we usually did not the diagonal cut, which is cool. My grandma did that, and I always thought that was really sweet. But there's a lot of different varieties of PBJs out there that we could have, but I want to know what your style of PBJ is. I want you to tell me right now, and you can put it in the comment box on the side, what are the steps for making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Just take a second to think about that. I'm going to limit you to about, let's say 3 to 5 steps. Let's just do the top few steps, because I know we could probably go on and on and on, which is interesting in and of itself, right? What we find is that as you're thinking of this right now, there's a variety of different ways to do it, right? There's my mom's way, there's my grandma's way. What's your way? So think about that for a second, put that in the box. I'm going to let you add those in, and I'm going to go ahead with the correct way to do it, my way. I'm just kidding. But I'm going to show you. So if I was going to make the peanut butter jelly sandwich, and I'll just make it right now, invisible kind of style, I would find 2 slices of bread, right, would be the first step. And then I would spread peanut butter on one slice of the bread. Then I would spread I think I'm missing a step here. I think I would clean it off and then put jelly on the other side of the bread. Don't stick that peanut butter in the jelly jar. That's not part of the steps here. And then put 2 slices of bread. I would put them together like this, right? Simple. All right. Why are we acting like children making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? Because this is an image that you can burn into your head every time that you're thinking about, when you're speaking with a developer or when you're thinking about coding something yourself. You need to know the big fundamental problem of what you're trying to solve, and at a higher level, like a 10,000 foot view, really kind of scope it out and think like, what are the steps to solving your problem? And that's important. You want to have that around. Maybe you want to put that on the wall here. Like I got stickies on my wall right here. I keep things on the wall because you need to keep that order, that higher level view. It's so easy when you're developing to get in the weeds and get stuck on a little something and go down a YouTube, Wikipedia, Google rabbit hole of getting lost. So we want to understand our bigger goal, and that is understanding that at all times there's a bigger, larger problem that we want to be thinking about, okay? Problem solved. Really good, right? All right, so why are we here? We are here to learn to think like a developer. Well, first off, you might be thinking, should everybody learn to be a developer? Should everybody learn to be a developer? What do you think? I mean, you're here. Maybe you're thinking of becoming a developer or hiring a developer, working with developers. Put it in the comment box. Let us know what you think. If you have some thoughts on that, I'd be curious to know. Everybody kind of falls, there's not one answer to this, right? I have my beliefs of what I teach my students at Columbia and with 1 month. But let's investigate some different opinions on this. Well, for one, we have Mayor Bloomberg, the former mayor here in New York City. He made it his resolution to learn to code. And he was like, it's code year, we're all going to code. This was a big thing around 2012. Everybody was starting to learn the code. It was a big thing. I don't know, is that useful? Is it useful that our mayor, should he know how to sling some JavaScript, while he's, in between City Hall and riding on the subway back home at night? That's what he does, apparently. I don't know, is that useful? Well, one guy thinks it is. This is an academic, a guy that wrote a book called Program or Be Programmed. His name is Douglas Rushkoff. He also teaches here in New York City. And with Program or Be Programmed, his thesis is that, look, if we don't learn to program, we risk being programmed ourselves. And what he means by that is that programming is the language and the architecture for how we communicate in the future. Think about it. How hard is it to not touch the internet in one day? Every time you send an email, a text, you go on Google, everything we do these days, it's hard to go like 15 minutes without touching something that's on the internet, right? That becomes the vehicle in a way that before the internet, we would speak, we would write, right? We would speak, we can read, we can write. There's different ways that we can transmit data, right? And if you look historically, you'll see that, the printing press was invented in the 17th century, but before that, knowledge was suppressed because people didn't have access to this. They didn't have access to be able to spread their message by printing press, right? By printing books. And people couldn't read them, right? Knowledge was suppressed. We have a similar kind of silo of knowledge right now with programming. There's only a certain amount of people who seem to be privileged enough to speak this language or to be smart enough or to know math enough, right? And I'm here, and Douglas's book is here as well, to say that is a misconception, and the truth is you're going to see this misconception in the next decade really starting to change, because kids are learning this stuff in elementary school, in junior high, in high school, right? So that literacy is changing. And depending where you are in your career, in your life, you may want to adapt with that, and you may want to get on board with thinking, speaking, perhaps programming yourself a little bit, so that you can take part in that exchange and not feel like you have to rely on someone else to always explain something to you. I really believe that. But just for funsies, let's reverse that. Let's say, let's go with the critic of Douglas Rushkoff, this guy, Jeff Atwood, who has a site called codinghorror.com. And Jeff says, all right, Douglas, well, if we don't learn to plumb, do we risk being plumbed ourselves, right? Like, I don't know how to plumb a toilet. Maybe I can use the plunger, but I don't know how to actually, like, I don't know how to, my car, I couldn't change the engine. He's like, at what level, how far, how deep does this go? And that is the essential question of how deep do you need to go? And I don't know that I can give you an answer, in this course, because it's a personal thing, it's subjective. For me, I had my goals. I had my goals of building that website. I wanted to get that website into the world. Then I came up with a new goal after that, one step at a time. After that, I said, I want to help other people build websites. I saw that it brought a lot of value to friends and to people that were in bands around me. And, from there I went on, and I'll tell you a little more about my story in a bit. But, from there I went on, and it was step by step. I didn't just wake up in college one day and say, hey, I want to go start a company where I teach people how to code. I'm going to go work on the Black Eyed Peas website or like American Express or anything. That's not how it happens. It's just small things, one after another, and little small things over many years, after 5 years, add up to something big, And I just say that humbly and share that with you to say you have to figure out for yourself subjectively where you are in your path and how much coding knowledge is really going to serve you. So that's something to think about. Okay, let's keep moving on. So what is your problem? That's the question here, and I want you to have that in the back of your head right now. Think about that as we go through this next 30 minutes. This has become like a therapy session, but it's for your best, right? Where I'm here just trying to help you think through this in your subconscious. And then at the end, maybe you'll know a little more clarity on what problem you're trying to solve. All right? All right, we just had a talk. We had a talk right now. Let's, I don't know what that means. All right. So this is live, or I would edit that out. Webmaster. What is this term here? This term is a word that this is my first job title, is what I'm trying to say. This is my first job title out of college. I, as a webmaster, did all of the different jobs there were, okay? I was making restaurant websites in New York City. Why am I sharing this with you? Because it's really important to understand the evolution of the different titles we give developers over the past few decades. This is really important. So at first there was a webmaster, and the webmaster did everything, right? And I really didn't like my job making restaurant websites because I had to do the design, choosing the colors, choosing the fonts, and then also code it. And I like to just code. I like to just solve problems and get things done. I was really happy the day that the small little agency I was working at, when we hired a person named a web designer. This was the first time that I had heard of this position, a web designer. This was maybe around 2005, four or five. And I was like, oh, you only do the colors and the layouts, and then I take that from you and I code it. I make that into code. Okay, cool. I like that because now you can go to the client meetings and you can talk about how they want their logo bigger and how the colors and like all that touchy-feely stuff. I just want to solve problems with coding, and coding tends to be more it works or it doesn't work usually, right? I love that day. That was a good day in my life. From there, over the next 5 or 6 years, I noticed all these other terms coming onto the scene. Now I had a choice of being a front end or a back end developer, or a user experience designer, or a web designer, or visual designer. What are all these different roles? Do I have to choose this? Well, this is where it starts to get confusing for you, because if you're coming into this story now, there's all these different roles to choose from, and there's even more. At the bottom, I'm just listing here just like a bunch more roles. They're not in any order, but you get the idea that we've gone from this sense of being really general, right? A webmaster is going to do everything, to being really specific. Kind of the way I think our doctors are the same way. There's like a doctor, but now there's like an ear, nose, and there's like an ear doctor, a nose doctor. That's the way the web's gone. And what I want to help you with now is give you a step-by-step way of thinking about how you can fit into this. Where are you in this? Are you the person that's going to do everything? Are you the developer? Or maybe you're specifically like the HTML5 front-end, developer and doing one specific thing. So let me help you out with that. And my main goal here, and the thing that I want you to take away, is that it really helps when two different roles can intersect. right? And so if you're a user experience designer right now coming to this course, it's helpful for me to know, as a developer, for me to know that you know the basics of development, and it's helpful for the developer to know a little bit about user experience. It gives us a common language, right? And so that's the way I think about this, is like, how can you broaden your language so that you can speak what other people. So we arrive here. This is the 1 month dev cycle. This is a method that I've seen used hundreds of times, and I've noticed this in anywhere from big agencies to small startups to one man or woman shops. Is there's always the successful developers are always using a method that looks something like this. And if you've had trouble before with what you're working on, likely it's that you started at a wrong part of the cycle, or you started, too focused on the front end and not enough on the back end, all this kind of stuff. But there's this more holistic way to look at this, and these are the 4 steps here. It may be surprising to you in this method that development is the 4th thing here, all the way at the end, right? There are 3 steps that we want to make sure that we think about or really accomplish before we actually touch any code. I've seen this way too many times where, for example, a friend named Tom, had called me up a few years ago and said, "Hey, I really want to hire you to work on this project with us. We already have 2 developers now. They're working with us down in Florida. Can you jump on and do a little dev work?" And I started to ask Tom a few questions. Who is this project for? Where are your wireframes? And he didn't really know. He didn't have this language, to understand what I, as a developer, potentially kind of being hired and working on this project needed. And so I turned him down. I said, this isn't really going to work for me, because he hadn't done the research that most developers are hoping that you've thought through and have some answers for before you come to them. And so that's what's going on here in the first 3 steps here, right? Is taking some of that weight off of the developer and really organizing your thoughts here and your problem solving. So the first step here in the problem solving method is user experience. And that's essentially making sure that you have a problem worth solving, right? User experience is a way that you can talk with users and do research that will really help you understand, is this something that people are going to use? Is this something that my developer can code technically? It will give you that sense of the market and of the people you're trying to reach. And sometimes I'll find out in the user experience phase that there's a solution to my problem that doesn't involve any code. And I'll go a lot into that in the course with how to think outside of the box. Because sometimes people will say, "Oh, I have this thing that I want to make, and it's going to take me like 8 months and $20,000 to make." But there might be a free or alternative solution if you just change your thinking about it. And that's what user experience is about. It's about having conversations. It's about thinking through the problem, and it's about organizing that problem in a way that makes your budget and makes your timeline the most effective. From there, if you have a really good, problem that you think the world needs, that you think is going to solve your problem, and you have it ready to go, information architecture is that second step that takes that and delivers it in a way, in a deliverable is what we call it, a way that you can give it to a developer or to an investor. And it will use tools like wireframes, flowcharts, all this kind of thing. In my course, in my Programming for Non-Programmers course, we go through each of these in a bit more detail so that you could get started right away. That's more of the idea. Right now, I'm just giving you the step-by-step idea of what to expect. If you were to go further, or what you might be missing in your day-to-day. And then the third step is visual design, and that's going to be concerned with the logo, the colors, the style, the feeling of the site. Thinking through all of these first 3 steps before you touch a line of code saves so much time in the web dev process. And that's what we've been teaching here at 1 month now for over 5 years, is how to bring that to your website, how to bring that to you, to your skill set, so that you can help other people not waste just hours and hours of time. And I've been there working on big projects where I've seen hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been allocated to websites just go to waste because there's not a solid method. All right, let's go into this with, I'm just gonna give you a few snapshots from each of these, just to give you like more of a sense of an image of what is going on under the hood. But if you want to learn more, I would recommend my Programming for Non-Programmers course. Is a really good way to kind of go deeper into each of these steps and get some tools that you can start applying to your life. But let's just go through the method a little bit more with just some images, and we'll work our way down to development, which is where we're going to end today. So I want to get us down to development. So user experience is coming up with questions for the user, testing their assumption, having conversations, creating an interview, perhaps a 45-minute interview tends to work really well. And there's certain methods and tools there that you can do, certain numbers you're going to want to hit, certain ways to acquire people to talk with. You know, you're not going to want to ask your mom or your wife or, or your husband or whoever to like help you with this. There's certain types of people that you're going to want to focus on, and that's all the part of user assumptions. Who are my users? How do I talk to the right people? What do we talk about? What's good data? What's bad data? All this kind of stuff. This is one of the tools that we use in the information architecture step, that second step, which is wireframing. Wireframing allows us to take those ideas and display them in a way that a developer can start to have a conversation about. Wireframing, I love this here, is something that is so common for successful companies to do that they will do it at any level. I mean, you can just do it with like a pen right here. You don't need to be a special, huge, like a professional wireframer. I mean, that is a thing, but probably for most cases in smaller companies, not something you're going to need. Maybe if you're very big, maybe if you're, Apple definitely has somebody who's just dedicated, or Facebook. Big companies will have just somebody who's dedicated to wireframing. But if you're small, and actually this is a pretty good takeaway, if you're small and you're starting out, all four of these roles, let me just go back here, all four of these roles might be one person. I'm not saying these are four different people. I'm saying that these are four different roles, four different checkboxes that you want to make sure you thought about. If you're a big company, you might hire a person or a team for each of them. If you're small, you might be doing them all yourself. And back to where we're here, can you take a guess at what this image is right here? This is a site that you're very familiar with, and this is the original wireframe by one of the founders who was trying to communicate his idea. If you have a second, if you take a guess, put it in the box, the chat box. See what comes in, and I'll tell you the answer. Commonly, I get, is this Facebook? Is this, I don't know, is this, Google? Some people get it right. The answer is, it is Twitter. And from there, the Twitter prototype, this is the first version of their homepage that was made of the website. And look at this. I mean, Twitter, TWTTR, no vowels. It's just like, this is what it is, though. It's just simple, and they got it out there. And again, that same principle of if you wait too long to launch, either someone else is going to do it or your idea is never going to launch. It's too late. You gotta get stuff out there. And that's what's going on here. You can see Jack Dorsey, who is making this method of taking the idea, doing some testing, putting it out there, just getting it out there as something simple, and then more or less going from this guy to, hey, I'm Jack Dorsey, what's up? All right, so far I've taken you through the user experience, information architecture at a very high level, just to introduce you to the concepts. And now we have the visual design. So the visual design is when you take the wireframe there on the left and you add the logo, the colors, the columns, right? The headers, all this kind of stuff. This is something that a specific person called the designer will do for your website. Yeah. So this is specifically when I worked at a company called General Assembly. I created their first website. This is back in New York City when they opened up. And I had worked with a team of people in a way that was kind of what we call agile, where basically somebody was doing the wireframes and somebody was designing and I was developing, and we were all more or less doing it together at a table, working on this problem together, building this website. But this is the process of having someone do the wireframes, bring it get the designer, get some feedback on it from the developer, and then I started to code it. Somewhat similarly, this was brought to me. These are design comps for a site I made for the Risk podcast. And initially, the site was given to me in a way that these were handed off to me. A designer who lived in Seattle, or maybe it was Vancouver, gave these to me, and I was able to code them just by having 3 of the templates for the website. All right, so again, just breezing through that, there's a lot more that I could go into, but I just want to get us to development. So when we get to this final stage, we've done our homework on user experience, information architecture, visual design, and now we have the vocabulary to prep all that prep work for the developer to be successful, okay? The biggest question that the developer starts with is, what language should I choose, right? This comes up all the time. And if you are learning to code yourself, you might say, I don't know where to start, which is one of the most daunting things. Totally. There's so many different programming languages. I get it, right? I want to make that easier for you. If you've failed at coding before, it's not because, it's not because there's anything wrong with you or you're not into math or any of that stuff. All that is bull. Really, what this is about is starting at the right step and in the right order. And what we do in the course, and you can see there's so many programming languages here that go back all the way back to the 50s, but what we do in the course is really break down for you the 7 that are the most common that you see a lot, And by understanding a few of these, we can understand all of them. That's the way I like to look at it, because what I was trying to show you here on this slide, and I know this makes things a lot more clear for you, but what this is trying to say is that all the different programming languages are connected in some way. That's the story here. They've all gone some kind of evolution, and there is something related to all of them, like the evolution of humanity. For example, programming languages evolve one into another. And so by understanding a few, the more popular ones, and by choosing from a subset like this, it will give you, I would say, like 90% success in any project you're going to work on, because you're going to be starting with the right set of choices and not just kind of out there in the weeds with all these crazy programming languages. So that's the goal there. Finally, I just want to leave you with this idea of a tech stack, because you may hear this as you come about. So the tech stack is a way to organize then some of your coding decisions. There is going to be, even if I give you 7 programming languages, there's going to be an order that those go in once you start working with the developer. Who's the front end? Who's the back end? Do they work together? These are really common questions I get that we don't have time for in this webinar, but I could go deeper into and help you understand. So yeah, what kind of database do I use? Understanding the tech stack and the order of it in this development phase is going to set you up for success, so that you start with the right ingredients, right? I like to think of this a lot as baking a cake, right? If you're going to bake a cake, there's a lot of different options for how you can do that, right? You can go and you can buy a box cake, right? It solves your problem. It's in the box. Everything's in there, right? But it might not be as customizable, and you might not know how to sub out things, or you don't have any options to, if somebody comes up and they're gluten-free, for how to make it special for somebody. And that's what understanding all the different separate ingredients is about, right? The box cake example here is something like WordPress or Squarespace. You could do that, but if you really want to get under the hood and you want to swap things out and you want to organize things and make it your own, that's where you need to understand the ingredients. And that's the tech stack analogy. I go into that way more depth in the course, but that's just kind of the higher level idea of how to think of this. Right now, you're just buying the box cake or you're ordering one at the store. But understanding the tech stack and the order is really understanding the recipe for making a successful website. All right, I hope you found our 4-step method helpful. My advice for next steps would be, if there was a term or a word or an idea that you heard in this webinar that you feel, hey, I didn't really quite get that or know what that was, maybe IA, I don't really quite know how to do that, wireframing, whatever it was, that is a signal that there's some blind spot in your process. So I would suggest that you go deeper into that and improve that enough so that you can understand this, ecosystem of developing, thinking, and speaking like a coder. If you'd like, of course, you could take my Programming for Non-Programmers course here with me at 1 month. And I promised in the beginning that I was going to give you a surprise. We don't discount our courses often, and we rarely do this with the discount that I'm going to give you guys. So I'm going to give you a big discount just because I feel like if you stick through, the 40 minutes of what we've just done here, that's something. I feel like you must really want to succeed, and I'm making this right now because I want to get this message to you. And so there it goes. We have a Programming for Non-Programmers course starting. The next one is starting on Monday, so you can click the link and look for that there. We generally start 2 courses a month, 2 different courses, and they start on Mondays. I want to tell you a little bit about how the course works, so if you want to take it with me and what to expect. And then I want to open up for Q&A at the end, so we have some questions that came in. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about how the course works, and whether you take the course with me or not, totally up to you, but this might even help structure your next steps if you don't take the course with me for just what you might want to think about next. So in Programming for Non-Programmers, the course is a 1-month course. It uses our method of all the courses can be completed within 30 days. You'll have 4 weeks to complete the course. So you'll have 4 weeks, and each week you'll be given a project. Everything at a really high level that we went over in this webinar is all in the first week, but we go much deeper into UX, much deeper into IA, design, and understanding front end and back end. That's all in just the first week. And then at the end of that week, you will submit a project to us for grading. That will be part of your final grade. Yeah. Second week, you will look specifically at which programming language to choose, and you will be able to speak more confidently about Ruby versus Python versus what does WordPress use to code, all this kind of stuff. The third week, we're going to actually code, and it doesn't matter if you're going to become a developer or not. Like Douglas Rushkoff said, program or be programmed. I think having at least the first hour and a half of coding experience, the best hour that I can give you, will give you that experiential learning to apply it to everything we're talking about. So you're actually going to code, you're going to make a little website using some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript all in that 1 week. And then finally, we're going to look at CMSs and beyond for hiring. How do you apply this to hiring? Making a job scorecard, we'll do that. As well as getting behind the scenes, looking at some back-end code in that final week. So just kind of setting you up for where do you go from there? How do you start applying this to your project? All of those tools will be in that last week. One of the most common questions I get is, what makes 1 month different from basically any other free or paid online course out there that you could be taking? And what I think really makes 1 month different is that we have a set amount of days that you can complete this in. A lot of people have trouble just sticking with things and showing up and doing them. So we've studied this and thought through this over the past 5 years, looking at how people complete online classes. And what we found is that it's really helpful to have a start date and to know that there's a deadline that you need to finish it in. So that's the first part of our method. And if you start Programming for Non-Programmers with us on Monday, you start on Monday, and every week you'll be given a project, like I said, and it needs to be finished by that last date or you won't get your final grade. So that's important. Also, you're doing it with people. If you have a question at any point during the course, we will get back to you within, generally we say around 8 to 12 hours, we'll get back to you with a response. The thing is, when you get started, if you start programming alone and you've done that before and it didn't work for you, generally you get stuck on something and you don't know where to go, you don't know who to ask, or you're asking somebody that doesn't, know how to speak with people who aren't developers, like I was saying, and they tell you something way too complicated. So that is what we are trained here to do, is to help you have a deadline, and then within that scope, be able to reach out for questioning, so that you actually get this done. We all want you to succeed, and that's part of what this is about. So that's the big method there. And the whole time you're making projects, you're stopping to hand in projects. Homework is due every Sunday, and that will be graded by one of our TAs. You'll get feedback on it to let you know how you're doing. You also get a grade on it, which will add up to your final grade. So that's more or less the 1 month method and how it works. I'm going to show you a little bit behind the scenes on some of the successes that we've had using with students using 1 month. The one thing which I'm always really proud of and we work hard for is our completion rates. We have an 85% completion rate, which if you know anything about completing online courses, it's about 5% in the industry. Right now, if you take an online course on Udemy or one of these sites, generally about 5% of people finish, right? It's abysmally low. We believe that because people come to us and they start on a certain date and have a finish date, and because we are emailing them and reaching out to them to check on and say, hey, how are you doing? We set up triggers, and that's just part of it. There's a lot more to it, as well as in our teaching method and what the homework is. It all comes together to really keep people engaged, and we're trying to make it fun too. You know what I mean? So we've seen and we've tweaked this over time, and slowly have been able to month over month over the past 5 years of building these courses and re-updating them and re-recording them and all that kind of stuff to make our completion rates so high. So if you join the course, you're very likely to finish it and even more likely to have success. And if you don't have success, we will give you a full refund. If you complete the course and you were not successful, you didn't learn what you said that you thought you were going to learn in this course, we will offer you a full refund for the course. So if you sign up and it's not for you, let us know. If you sign up and you take the whole thing and it didn't help you solve your problem, just let us know. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you. There are dozens of success stories with 1 month. There are thousands of success stories of students who have come out of 1 month and built amazing things and started just inspiring careers. I'm going to share a few of those with you now. This is one from a student of ours named Surin. And Surin, as you can see here, this was in the New York Times. He was featured in the New York Times for a website which he made. I'll show you the website, this here. This is a website that he made it was kind of like an Airbnb that specifically had accommodations for people with wheelchairs and disabilities. He felt that was lacking on Airbnb, that there wasn't enough information, that it was hard to find reliable sources for that. And so he put this together after taking a 1 month course. A year later, after doing that, this is in 2015, he was featured in the New York Times and flown to New York to work. He was trying to find investors for a site to build that site into a startup. And as you can see here, he quotes, in the thing he says he learned the skills from New York startup, which offers online courses 1 month. And the whole story is there that you can read. It's such an amazing, inspiring tale of what he's done. Since this date, he's gotten funding, built the company, and actually sold the company in just the past year. So it's been an amazing journey to watch someone go from zero coding to understanding what it is, building something, launching it, and all of that in just a few years. This is another story. This is one of those kind of heart tuggers, but it's amazing, where in 2013, someone on Twitter, this guy named Tyro, put out, he said, is anybody interested in learning Ruby on Rails? And in Nigeria specifically. And he gifted one of our courses. We were called 1 Month Rails back in the day. This is when we first started in 2013. And this guy Lulu here at the bottom said, I'm interested. So this happened without any of my knowledge. I didn't even know that this happened. But over the next 5 years, he gifts him one of our courses. And over the next 5 years, Lulu goes and becomes a developer. And then I'm sent this text, which was what he sent him. So he calls him Uncle Faye. And he said that, I'm not sure you remember, but you paid for me to do this course, 1 Month Rails. And then he basically says, I went on to do freelance dev work with Ruby on Rails and other skills. So this is another success story of somebody who came to us. And again, I didn't know this for 5 years that he was working on this. And it was just amazing to get this forwarded to me, to see that somebody, this young kid in Nigeria who didn't have any coding experience was able to make a whole career on it. Many of these students started with programming for non-programmers and then went on to take 1 or 2 of our other courses, whether it was the Ruby on Rails course or the HTML course, the JavaScript course. There's a lot of different courses that we offer, but programming for non-programmers, it's the best place if you don't know where to get started or you just need that introductory, that kind of digital literacy to get you moving on the right path. I'm going to show you two more things, and then I'm going to do some Q&A, and then we'll wrap up here because I want to respect your time, and I want to finish this in less than an hour. So, programming for non-programmers. This is what it looks like when you get in. The course is broken down to about 1 to 2 hours of video every week, and there's a start date and there's an end date that's specific to you on when you have to finish the course. Like I said, you'll be doing it. There's a TA that you can ask questions with that will help you solve problems, that will grade your homework, and make sure that you complete the course and get the most out of it. If you go on beyond programming for non-programmers, we offer projects that you can make. Like I said, that you can code. Every week you do a different project. These are all from just the one HTML course that we offer, which is a great follow-up to programming for non-programmers. In 1 month HTML, you make this kind of like about me profile page. You make a blog template. You make a landing page using Bootstrap, and a lot of different tools out there. So there's a lot of cool things that you can build after this. This will give you that foundation. All right, so programming for non-programmers, every other Monday, a new course starts. That's about twice a month. Everybody starts at the same time. And I want to give you a chance now to ask some questions while you're signing up. So, all right, so I have some questions here that came in during the hour, and I'm just gonna pick a few of them to answer. And then if you have any questions after this, you can always ask us at teachers@onemonth.com. If you have a question, shoot it to us at teachers@onemonth.com if I don't get to it now. So, is there homework? This must have been from earlier, but yeah, there's homework, and it's due every Sunday at 11:59, right before midnight Eastern Standard Time. So that's an easy one. Do I have access to the course forever? Yes and no. So you have access for 4 weeks. You have access to submit your homework, to ask questions. That's when you're taking the course. But then afterwards, you'll have access for at least up to a year. You'll no longer be able to submit your grade for that, so that part of the course is done, but you'll be able to go back and review and use those tools, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Can I earn a certificate? Yes, we do have certificates. So certificates, if you complete all of the videos, submit all of your homework, and get a grade above 80, you will get a certificate. So that's all you have to do for that. The certificate, I think it's cool because you can, in one click, add it to your LinkedIn page. So if you're looking for a job, this is a good way to show, hey, I've been certified in JavaScript. Hey, I've been certified in programming for non-programmers. Whatever course you take with us after programming for non-programmers, they also have certificates as well. So you can get one for programming for non-programmers, the HTML course, the JavaScript course. I would say those are my 3 favorite courses for getting started, if that's you, if you're just getting started right now and you want the basics here. Any other questions? What's the difference between Ruby and Python? Ruby and Python, I go over this a lot in the course, and you need to understand some basic vocabulary for getting there, and I hope that you take the course with me so that I can get you up to speed in that and make that make sense. In short, though, I'd say if you're non-technical, there's really not too much of a difference at the end of the day between which one you choose. Python tends to be better for doing things like that's around math, it tends to be a takeaway from that. And Ruby tends to be better for making web apps, especially if you're a small startup. So for an example, Google tends to use a lot of Python on going through their data and storing it and doing Google search. They use Python for that. Whereas Ruby and using something like Ruby on Rails might be good for getting a prototype out of your site. Sites like Groupon, Twitter, when they first launched, used Ruby on Rails. It's a really good way to just get something out. There's a lot more I could say about that, and I will say in the course, but that's just kind of a basic way to think about it. All right, let's wrap up for now. Thank you so much for coming to this webinar. Down below is the link that you can get in on this deal to take the next programming for non-programmers here at 1 month. I think it'd be really great to have you. And if you have any other questions, you know where to reach us, teachers@onemonth.com. Let us know if something wasn't answered. If you're still unsure of where to start or any questions about the course, you can let us know there as well. This was exciting. This was fun. Share it with your friends if you found this valuable. Let them know that they can come to 1 month and take the course with you. That would be exciting too. Thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna let you go. All right, bye. See ya.